Hello, my name is Nisha-Emily and this is my Unit 9 Perspectives in Psychology. Cognitive psychology. Cognitive psychology is your knowledge and mental process. For example, how you remember things, how you perceive things. Cognitive psychology also plays a role in how you problem solve and the choices that you make, as well as how you act. It also includes how you understand speech, environment, memory, and your recall. Cognitive psychology also includes your attention. This is when our brain tells you that we cannot focus on more than one thing at the same time. An example of this would be watching TV whilst being on your phone. Cognitive psychology has two parts: bottom-up processing, which is how your brain collects information from your surroundings and translates the other information, which creates signals which are transported within the brain. The other part of cognitive psychology is top-down processing, which uses your knowledge and life experiences with the surroundings around you. Social psychology. When you change your thoughts, how you feel, and your behaviour based on people around you. This can either be in real-life situations, being told information by other people, or via the media. An example of this is called social influence. Social psychology studies the behaviour, thoughts and feelings. An example of this is if you was in a group of people drinking around you, you would feel pressured to drink, so you don't want to feel like you're being missed out. This can also be seen as peer pressure. Social psychology changes the choices people make based on what people do around you. This can either be positive or negative. An example of this is if people see people rioting, they may want to join in to the riots to fit into society. Social psychology also includes what is classed as normal in society. This is why we change our behaviours, thoughts and feelings. This is because anything which isn't classed as normal may be looked down upon and judged. Evaluations and assumptions in psychology. Cognitive psychology. Cognitive psychologists believes that your behaviour and your actions are fueled by your mental process as well as watching situations and people. Your mental process also increases your memory, reasoning with things and your language. These can affect the way you act, which can make you adjust your behaviours towards others around you. Psychologists believe that your cognitive psychology is influenced by your mental processing. Cognitive psychology assumptions. Your internal processing can be observed rather than using logic and should be studied in a more scientific way. Your brain can process information the same way as a computer, e.g. processing, inputting and outputs, as well as storing information and gathering information. Your input is what you see, your process is your thinking process, and your output is how you behave, speak, or how you interpret what happens around you. The way your brain processes things and the information can cause certain behaviours, e.g. impulses. Your experiences and memories have an impact on your internal mental process, which aids how you interact with other people around you. Limitations. The risks of dismissing certain emotions and feelings which may affect the way you act and behave. An example of this would be the study of Yerkes and Dodson in 1808, where they found that anxiety can have an impact on your memory and understanding of past events. Individuals who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar are quite often overlooked. Most studies are done within a simulated environment which doesn't match real life situations, which may make the participants feel like they have to perform well or that they aren't doing something correctly, as well as knowing that they're being watched. During the experiments, researchers focus more on the behaviour displayed than the internal process beforehand. However, it cannot be proven that the internal mental process is linked to the behaviour. Strengths. With technology advancing, we are able to use MRI scanners to produce strong results which can be duplicated if needed. The use of different therapies such as CBT can be used in the treatment of mental illnesses such as depression. Social psychology. Your social psychology is based on yourself and individuals in your surroundings, which can also affect your emotional state. Assumptions. Individuals in and around your surroundings can have an impact on your behaviour and the way you think and your thought process. Your relationships with others can also have an impact on the way you think and behave and act. The way you act happens both in the company of people or when you're alone. The way you act changes depending on the activity setting, the setting you're in, or what you are doing, or what is around you, or what people are around you. You may also act differently when you're in your own company, as you're not being influenced by your surroundings and peers. Limitations. Social psychology studies are done in a simulated environment which does not reflect the real world, and this can also affect the results. During studies and experiments, the researchers' prompts may cause the individuals to alter their behaviours because they may feel like they are doing the wrong thing. Individuals' personality traits can be easily overlooked as the researchers are looking more on the situation, on how the situation can influence them. Strengths. Social psychology can help improve social problems such as discrimination and can help be a change as an individuals are more focused on their behaviours. By studying different cultures, researchers can get an idea on cultural differences and how they may arise and how they may tackle it in the future. Key theorists in cognitive psychology. Jean Paget's theory of cognitive psychology development, 1936. Paget believed that there are 4 stages within a child's development. The first one is the sensomotory stage, which happens between birth to 2 years. This is where infants use their senses, such as look, see, sound, touch, to become familiar with their surroundings. The second stage is pre-obturational stage, which happens between 2 and 7 years old. This is when children start to think more logically about their surroundings and tasks at hand. During this stage, they may start to understand knowing the quantity of an object stays the same no matter what shape or size. An example of this is putting the same amount of liquid in both a shallow glass and a tall glass. The fourth stage is formal operational stage, which happens to 11 years and adulthood. This is when you start to think more deeply and have more hypothetical thinking, as well as having a better understanding about your surroundings and situations you may be in. The limitations are the sample size was his own children. He knew they were also his colleagues' children, so it lacked diversity. Strengths. Paget was the first psychologist to study cognitive development, which had an impact on the educational system. Key theorists in social psychology, Tafler and Turner's social identity theory, 1979. Social identification. When an individual within their group adopts the characteristics of the group by changing their values and behaviours. Social comparison. When you compare yourself to other groups and could see them as a rival group, which can also sometimes lead to conflicts between the other groups. In-groups, us, out-groups, them. The in-group is the group that you identify as, and the out-groups is the group that you do not identify as. Positive distinctness. The need for your group to be shown in a positive light and making other groups appear negative. The strengths of this theory is the theory has an impact on psychology and has influenced other research on things like social influencing and stereotyping. Limitations. The theory overlooks individuals' personalities and life experience, which can have an impact on your social interactions and the way you identify. Similarities and differences between perspectives in psychology. Determinism versus free will. How your behaviour is managed both internally and externally, being able to have free choices. Nature and nurture looks at your biology and the surroundings that you were raised in. Reductism and holism looks at your behaviour step by step and your thinking process, how factors within situations can affect your behaviours. Research methods. Empirical research normally happens in a lab setting and collects data whilst using scientific methods. Non-empirical research focuses on the observations to collect the data. Similarities and differences between cognitive psychology and biological psychology. The similarities are nature versus nurture. Both cognitive and biological psychologists believe the nurture has an impact on the individual's nature and behaviour. The differences of nature and nurture are cognitive psychologists believe that both nature and nurture has an impact on behaviour. Biological psychologists believe more in nature and focuses more on the individual's brain, genes, nervous system and the impact it has on their behaviours. Determinism versus free will. Cognitive psychologists believe that they are linked to an extent in some way. However, cognitive psychologists believe that your thinking process can be foreseen, where biological psychologists believe that your behaviours are based on your genetics. The differences. Cognitive psychologists are soft determinists, which means they focus on both internal and external factors such as your thinking process and your surroundings. Biological psychologists are hard determinists and believe that your genes affect your behaviour and is involuntary. Research methods. Similarities. Both cognitive and biological psychologists both do empirical research methods. Differences. Most cognitive psychologists depend on empirical research, however, Pidgeot's use none. Contemporary issues, mental health and well-being. Psychodynamic perspective, psychodynamic therapy. Psychodynamic therapy is speaking therapy. During your sessions, you are given tools and researches to understand your feelings and how they may impact your behaviour. Its aim is to uncover your past experiences and trauma which may have been hidden. It is used to treat multiple mental health issues. The strengths of this is it focuses on you as a whole and multiple parts of your brain and helps you understand why your trauma and experiences has affected your behaviour and does affect your behaviour, as well as making you more aware of your behaviours, feelings and emotions. Limitations. Sadly, it is not fit for all mental health illnesses. It can have a long-lasting effect on the individual as you're uncovering past trauma due to being an intense type of therapy. It can be hard to keep up with the time commitment as it is done over 50 sessions. It can also be very cost effective in the long run. Contemporary issues, diversity and inclusion. Behaviourism, observational learning. Psychologists believe that when observing individuals, it can help reduce issues like discrimination and increase inclusion. This can be seen mainly in settings like a school or workplace. The strengths of this is by having a leader who actively promotes practices inclusion, such as a manager, teacher, senior or older people. This can have a positive outcome and encourages others to follow and copy their behaviours. The limitations of this. People may do observational learning, however their views may be easily changed by things around us, e.g. the news just showing negatives and not the positives of a situation. These are my references, and this was my Unit 9 Perspectives in Psychology.